Parents of Reditt, what's the creepiest thing your child has ever said to you? While I was taking a nap, my roommate was watching my daughter. My daughter seemingly went back to her room but had been back there for a while, so my roommate went to check on her. My roommate found my daughter in my room standing over me with a toy knife, repeatedly bringing it down in a stabbing motion with both hands, whispering stab 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 stab. My son is creepy, but not in the ways most everyone else here is. When he was 9, I was putting him to bed and he starts making a fuss about the monster in the closet. I tell him he's too old for that kind of thing and to go to sleep. He whines that I need to check the closet. I relent since that's the only way to shut him up. I open the closet, I turn on the light, and I see this big burly guy with a beard staring back at me, and I scream like a little girl. It was a mirror. He's laughing his troll butt off and I'm wondering if he's too old to be abandoned on someone's doorstep. So far he hasn't killed me with a heart attack yet. At first I had assumed you were the mom. I wondered how he got that big burly bearded guy to agree to the prank. My nephew was 4 at the time. My sister and I were driving along, he in his car seat in the back, when we came up behind a pickup truck with a clearly dead cow laying with its head lolling lifelessly towards us. My sister, trying to bring hope to the situation, says, "Maybe it's just sleeping," and my nephew, completely serious, replies instantly with, "Maybe it's just dead." Same nephew. 5 years later, we were watching America's Ninja Warrior and they just told one of their inspirational stories of a guy who had overcome all odds to come compete, and they kept cutting to his beautiful wife and young children and the audience. My nephew says excitedly, "I want to see him fail right in front of his kids." Future CEO. I used to go on daily walks with my daughter around town. Part of this walk included going through a cemetery. She was just learning to talk. She was maybe 2, and as we were walking through the cemetery she starting softly saying, "Baby, hello baby," and waving towards a particular area of grass. Curious, I walked over to the area and found a small headstone, the kind that lies flat in the ground, and on the headstone was marked a baby who lived only 1 day, then died. My daughter was apparently talking to a dead baby ghost. I freaked out and we avoided the cemetery from then on. My sister's dog died while she was on holiday with her family, so my father and I buried it in their backyard. When they got back, their 3-year-old son walked right up to the spot, which was covered in bracken, and looked and touched, petted the ground and said the dog's name. They had not yet told him about the dog's death. My wife woke up to our daughter, then 5, peeling her sunburned skin off her shoulders. When asked what she was doing, she replied, "I love to peel your skin off your body while you sleep. So, yeah, that. It puts lotion on its skin or it gets the hose again." Years ago, when my sons were around 4, we had friends over drinks and poker. Woke up, hungover, on the couch the next morning with one of them staring at me. He said, deadpan and very adult sounding, "You don't think we watch you, but we do." He then retreated to his room. My mom used that exact line throughout my childhood. My daughter told us during breakfast that there were 2 old women that would stand at the foot of her bed at night. I asked her what they did and she said they just stood there and watched her as she went to sleep. She didn't seem concerned about it at all. I was watching a friend's daughter one night. I set her up in front of the TV and click on one of the kids' channels. I walk into the kitchen for like 2 minutes, and when I return, she's sitting in a different chair with a puzzled look on her face and the TV turned off. I asked what happened. In this concerned tone, she says I tried to stop it from getting out, but it was too late, then looks over at the TV. Weirded me the frick out. This one definitely wins it for me. Wife pregnant, 3-year-old's on her lap and we are explaining the baby in belly and comes out. My daughter says with a smile and unblinking stare into my wife's very soul, "I can't wait for the baby to rip open your belly so I can see her eyes." I came into my 5-year-old's bedroom a while back. He was lying perfectly still and didn't respond when I spoke to him. Alarmed, I shook him lightly. He opened his eyes and smiled at me. I said, "Are you okay?" He replied with, "I was pretending to be dead so you could see what it's like." Thanks, son. Just what a parent needs. I'm sure that was terrifying at the time, but I can't help but laugh at this one. My 5-year-old daughter asked me, "How old will I be when you die?" Although it was creepy, she followed it up with, I want to die first so I don't have to see you die. One of the saddest things I've ever heard. I used to think like that as a kid as well. Parents dying seemed like the scariest thing ever. My 4-year-old son had a habit of announcing when he had to use a bathroom. He would say, "I gotta go potty." One time he makes his business known and heads off toward the bathroom. He returned seconds later and says there's already someone in the bathroom. Now I do know for a fact that it's just the two of us home, so the hair stands up on my neck. I ask him, "What do you mean?" He repeats, "There's already someone in the bathroom." Now I'm thinking, is it someone I see dead people or someone in a hockey goalie mask? So I grab the biggest knife from my knife block and tell him to stay here. I walk to the bathroom, take a wide angle to see in, nobody. Slowly and quietly walk toward the shower and pull back the curtain. Nothing. By now my son has walked around the corner and I ask him, "Where did you see the person?" He points to an unflushed toilet and says, "See, someone's already here." His big brother didn't flush the toilet. That is absolutely terrifying. I would not feel safe in my own home after that. I woke up to my oldest coming into the room. I called out to ask what he was doing and got no response. He came around to my side, leaned over close to my face, and softly muttered, "Hi daddy," with the most vile smirk I have ever seen a kid make. Then he puked on me. Sleepwalking and flu are a B combo. My son went through a period of terrible night terrors when he was 3. One night, I was exhausted and sitting on the floor of his room while he thrashed about crying. Then, he abruptly stopped crying, sat up and looked at me. He smiled and said, "Daddy, come on. Come here. I need to show you something." His expression then turned to a sneer and he said, "I got a surprise for you," while pointing to his closet. That was the only time I ever noped the heck out of my kid's room. So you need to get a guy with a fake arm, have him hide in the closet, then when your son is about to sleep, have him make noises. When your son starts screaming, burst in with a knife and ask what's wrong. Then pull open the door and pretend to cut the man's arm off and throw it at your son. After your son stops screaming, say, "And that's why you don't prank your dad." None of the things my son has said to me will ever be as creepy as what my sister told our mother when she was little. My sister, who was around 5 at the time, had recently become obsessed with Egypt and mummies and stuff. So one day, out of the blue, in a completely serious voice she tells our mom, "When you die, I'm going to mummify you and put you in the corner of my house. I'll feed you every day and move your jaw so you can chew the food." My mom claims it was both terrifying and adorable. I had a similar nightmare to this when I was a child. I was executed for meat in a famine and continued to be conscious, hanging on a rack in someone's house, until the last scrap of flesh was picked off my ribcage. I had this dream at 5 and can remember every detail. My son waking me up in the middle of night, crying and saying, "Daddy, why did you chop your head off? Why?" "Daddy, you're going to die in a fire." My 2-year-old daughter, after I told her to stop being naughty, the fact it was so specific freaked me out. Probably explainable but still creepy nonetheless. My dad died before I met my wife and she had never met him. I had never shown her pictures. My mom never really gave any to me and my brother. Anyways, we get married and my son is born soon after. When he turned around 4 years old, I had finally snatched a bunch of old photo albums from my mom's attic. My wife and I were going through pictures and found one of my dad when he was younger. My son came into the room, so I showed him and asked him if he knew who that was. He quickly replied, "Grandpa." It freaked me out since that was the first time he or my wife had seen a picture of him. The only thing I could think of is that maybe my brother had shown my son a picture of my dad at some point and told him who it was. My brother denies showing him any pictures, but he and I mess with each other a lot, so I still think this is the best explanation. Still freaked me out though. My daughter introduced me to her imaginary friend, Anna. Anna couldn't talk because she had tape over her mouth. Bad people put it there. They also took her parents to the bad Jesus. She was like 5 and the sweetest little girl. She's now 14 and, well, a typical 14-year-old. I asked her about Anna recently and she had no recollection of anything other than her being an imaginary friend. You missed an opportunity to solve a murder and bring down a cult. I'm late. Anyway, I was pregnant with my son and having him by C-section in 2 days. My sister and I had our 2 girls, both almost 2 and 3 days apart in age, in car seats in the back of her car. We were going to the mall to do last minute Christmas shopping. Didn't want to be in the mall with a newborn. We were driving along and my daughter says, "Just cut the ear off." We laughed and said, "Who are you, Vincent Van Gogh?" When I had my son 2 days later, he was born with only one ear. My crusher. It was weird. My baby cousin once said to me, "Freedom is a jump away." We were watching a thing on birds and it was super creepy. Wake up. God, I have a ton of these, and as someone told me it's creepier from my kids cause they look like Children of the Corn. The latest. Driving and my 3-year-old son says to his sister, "We are never gonna see mommy again cause she went to a bad place, but it'll be okay." He wouldn't explain what he meant, but turned out mommy was okay. Creepy crap. From about 2-3 my brother would talk about being a fighter pilot who died over a jungle. He'd point to pictures of people in aviator jackets and say, "I used to have one of those before I died," or "I got one for flying my jet, but then I got shot down in the jungle." He was very insistent. I'm not too sure what to make of it, but my mom is sure that he was reincarnated after dying in Nam. Yeah, I don't have any kids myself, but I have past memories I can't possibly have. I specifically remember watching the Challenger's space shuttle explode in the sky. I was standing watching the launch. That happened 3 years before I was born, so I don't really know what to make of it. Not our child, but a while back, when my girlfriend and I were babysitting her niece. My girlfriend and her were playing in the living room. Now, just imagine a toddler playing with toys and books, because this is what her niece was doing. Then out of nowhere, she grabs my GF's head and whispers into her ear, "You're bleeding," and then goes back to playing with her toys and books. Children, like bears, can smell when a woman is menstruating. Son came out of the room our daughter was sleeping in and told us not to go in there. He wouldn't like that. We went in and our daughter was fine, sleeping. When we asked who he was, our son didn't know, chalked it up as an imaginary friend. Didn't say anything. My daughter just woke up at about 3 AM, came into our bedroom and stood at the foot of the bed. She stood there, staring at us, until my wife woke up and saw her. I was startled awake by my wife's terrified gasp. My daughter just wanted a drink of water. Had just bought a house. Old house, maybe 80 years old. I took my kids over to the new house because delivery guys were bringing new fridge. We hadn't moved in yet. House was empty. My son, then about 3, was running around exploring when he runs back into the kitchen where I was sitting with his newborn brother. Son says, "Mom, who are those boys?" I think he saw someone outside, so I ask what boys. He says those little boys sleeping in the closet. I asked him to repeat himself and I'd heard him right, so I ask him to show me. He takes me to the coat closet in the middle of the house. Opens the door. Nothing there. He says casually, "Oh, they're gone now." I said, "Old house. Not the oldest house ever. Old house. 80 years. Not a new house. Cripes, you people are babies." Frick that. I would sell that house. I was chilling with my roommate best friend one day and my son walks out of his room and starts yelling, "Dad." It startled us, so I jump up to see what's wrong and he's just staring blankly into the wall with eyes wide open yelling, "Dad." He looked horrified and I was tripped out until my homeboy said, "Yo, if he don't stop I'm gonna hit him with the Bible." It was probably one of the creepiest and weirdly funniest situations I've ever been in. Long story short, I found out my son is a creepy sleepwalker and my best friend is a hilarious butthole. My son is 9 now and still wakes up randomly and does creepy crap. Yo, if he don't stop I'm gonna hit him with the Bible. Beautiful. I want to cut you up and put you in the oven while holding a toy knife. Our 9-year-old has talked about what I can only assume was his past life, or lives many times, to the point where we just kind of accept it. The first time was when he casually told my husband what he, son, did when he was a dad. Please go into more detail if you don't mind. Yesterday my 2.5-year-old son said he wanted to put our newborn daughter in the oven and cook her. At this age I can let it go. If he said this at 5 or 6 years old we have some serious counseling that needs to happen. Maybe he heard someone say you had a bun in the oven when you were pregnant and didn't quite get it. Or he's literally Hitler. One time my sister-in-law was reading my niece, then about 4, a bedtime story, and my niece said something about the angel standing in the corner of the room, and pointed to the empty corner. Apparently the angel appeared in her room frequently. Serious look on my 6-year-old daughter's face. Mommy, if you got bit by a zombie, I'd kill you, because I love you. That's just good planning. The creepiest thing my Sophia, now 6, has done was, strangely enough, her first laugh. She was 3 or 4 months old. I had just bottle fed her late at night in my computer chair. I was leaned back some with her on my belly, bouncing her lightly and burping her. She got this dong-eyed look for a second and then laughed. The laugh was deep. No possible way it could have come from an infant. It's still weird to this day when I think about it. She does have a raspy little voice now for a 6-year-old. You birthed Smorg. We're trying to get a handle on my exceedingly rambunctious 4-year-old son. We started doing the super nanny method of the naughty chair. It's like a very structured timeout. Well, for the first couple of weeks, he thought it was a novel, fun game. By the 3rd week, it started to dawn on him that we were serious, and this was punishment. That dart pee him off. So, he growled to us that he wanted to put us in cages and keep us as his pets. I don't know what to do with this kid. Stay strong, he'll get it. My 6-year-old daughter once got mad at me and told me point blank, Mom, I'm going to let all your blood out and then God will have to make you again. I'm 100% serious. She is an incredibly sweet and compassionate child, normally, and I still have no freaking clue where that comment came from. She never said anything like that again. Creepy story that my friend told me. His brother had a young son. They moved into a new house. The son kept asking his parents, who is that lady standing in the corner, and, of course, the parents have no idea who the kid is referring to. At one point the kid became really agitated, repeatedly kept asking who the lady in the corner was and really wanted to know why she was crying all the time. Eventually the kid stopped asking about the lady, and eventually they moved out of the house. But there's something about it that gives me goosebumps. Not a parent, but I've nannied each day for the same family for 3 years and the younger kid is a budding psychopath. There is a Jewish neighboring child that he dislikes, and when his older sibling was learning about the Holocaust in school, he, the younger child, would make loud and proud statements about Hitler killing the Jewish neighbor child so he wouldn't cry anymore. Greek letter iota don't have kids, but once, visiting home friends on a farm, my buddy's unjust girl, 5 or 6, at the time, was afraid of the chickens. I tried to explain to her that the chickens weren't threat to hurt us, but she wasn't having it. So I'm sitting around the fry pit, looking at one of the chickens Cyrillic letter a few feet in front of me when Greek letter iota feel hot breath in my ear as her whispers, "See, he's always watching." Horrific and hysterical all at once. I'd laugh so hard, honestly. Not me but a friend's son. When he was around 3, he heard a piece of music on the radio, turned to my friend and said, "Mummy, this was the last piece I conducted before I died when I was an old man." When asked about it later he said, "I don't have room in my head for memories like that anymore, Mummy. Apologies for spelling format on my phone. This is the worst one yet." Not my kid but a 4-year-old I babysit. She turns to me one day and says, "I really like the taste of blood." She then turns her arm over to me to show where she's been sucking on an open scab. Her parents were notified ASAP. I used to do that a bit. Shortly after my boy was stating to make mostly complete sentences, he told me I had a greenhouse, but it burnt down. For weeks he talked about the greenhouse he used to have, but would never really answer any of my questions. It made me think it was memories of a past life. When I ask him now, he doesn't remember anything. The creepiest thing my daughter has said was a long story about Tinkerbell hosting a dinner party and a turkey comes and breaks up the party and eats the redhead fairy. I forget the name. So Tinkerbell gets the other fairies together, hunts down the turkey, and eat it. She explained the entire process of butchering a turkey at age 2, in perfect detail, to my best friend. Granted, She was helping my dad butcher turkeys the day before, but it's scary hearing a 2-year-old go into such detail with such enthusiasm. Me, however, I was a creepy kid. When I had just learned to walk and talk, I found my great-grandmother dead in her room. The morning started by my grandma getting up with me to turn on the TV so I could watch cartoons. She always did this and then went to bed for another couple hours. So I'm watching cartoons and I just start uncontrollably sobbing out of nowhere. I had no idea why. This wakes my mom up and she asks me what's wrong. I don't know, and I tell her today is going to be the worst day ever. She shrugs and goes to use the restroom. I then decide to go wake my great grandma up, but she doesn't wake up. I'm not old enough to know what death is yet, but I suddenly understood it perfectly well. I walked out crying because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. My mom is stepping out of the bathroom and asks me what's wrong now. Gummer's dead. She rolls her eyes at me and finishes getting dressed. I heard her screaming in my grandma's room 10 minutes later. To this day she looks at me with this "how the heck did you know" look about whenever my grandma gets mentioned. Not me, but once while we were eating on the table my 12-year-old brother openly said, "Dad, I want to frick a girl." It was so awkward I left my food and went to my room, even though I was hungry as heck. I'd have honestly died laughing. My sister was cutting up watermelon when my then 4-year-old niece, who had been staring at the knife with a glazed look, says, "Let's pretend it's people." My son once said he wanted to be me for Halloween by cutting off my skin and wearing it. He was 6. You have been visited by the fashion doggo. Comment your envy strengthens me so you always look beautiful. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person.